Sometimes the government tries to hide stuff from its citizens, but the truth always comes to light. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and today we're counting down our list of the top 10 weird US intelligence leaks throughout history that make no sense. Coming in at number 10 is Project Stargate. Not to be confused with the popular sci-fi movies or TV series, this Stargate may even be less grounded in reality. In a move that could have only been made during the Cold War, the CIA began to research on using extrasensory perception, ESP, and psychokinesis, moving objects using the mind, for the purposes of espionage. In 1972, a classified report suggested that the Soviet Union was spending plenty of rubles searching psychic powers and their potential to be used in the military. Now, the CIA, not wanting the Russians to be first, began funding their own research. The Stanford Research Institute in California became the de facto headquarters for such research. The study was dubbed Project Stargate, and one of the psychics, known as remote viewers, was used in 450 missions for the CIA. The feds even enlisted the help of a self-professed psychic and a spoonbender, Uri Geller. In a report by the American Institute for Research, it was concluded that remote viewing had not been proved to work by a psychic mechanism and that it should not be used operationally. The report was the death knell of Project Stargate. Number 9. Navy UFO. Ryan Graves, a former Navy pilot who testified he witnessed an unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, with his own eyes, called on President Joe Biden to investigate the mysterious object spotted in American airspace. Ryan, a former fighter pilot, explained that after 2014, when upgrades were made to our radar system, our squadron made a startling discovery. There were unknown objects in our airspace, and these were not mere balloons like the Chinese spy balloon that dominated the country's attention in February. They could hold their position, appearing motionless, despite Category 4 hurricane force winds of 120 knots. They did not have any visible means of lift or control surfaces, in other words, nothing that resembled normal aircrafts with wings, flaps, or engines. Now, these are not isolated incidents, Ryan said. We have a real UFO problem, and it's not balloons. The point is, we don't have as clear an understanding of what's above our heads as we thought we did. There are uncertainties up there that we have to deal with, and if we don't do it, our adversaries are going to take advantage of that uncertainty, that weakness, to spy on us with various means, as we've seen. It's pretty clear if there are things over our head that we're not sure what they are, well, we need to figure it out. If they're adversarial, then it's a national security issue. We have mechanisms for that. If it's not a national security issue, if it's not an adversarial platform, then it's a matter for scientific inquiry. Now, it's crazy that he was even allowed to speak about this, but to be honest, it kinda makes me scared. Number 8. Camel Corps. In 1856, Secretary of War Jefferson Davis imported dozens of camels from Africa and Turkey. He called them ships of the desert, believing the camels would be superior to horses and mules in the harsh, hot terrain. There were shockingly even some successful test runs to support his claim. In 1855, Congress passed the Shield Amendment. This allocated $30,000, over $1 million today, for the purchase of camels. Months were spent training civilians and soldiers on the animals, and by 1857, the Camel Corps consisted of 70 animals. By 1861, the American Civil War was taking hold of Congress's attention, and the Great Camel Experiment was left abandoned. By 1864, the remaining camels were sold at a public auction for $1,945. Number 7. Operation Devil Eyes. Devil Eyes was a codename for a secret psychological warfare program in 2005 to 2006 by the CIA to develop an action figure of Osama bin Laden to distribute it in South Asia, especially Afghanistan and Pakistan. The CIA worked in conjunction with toy maker Donald Levine, a former Hasbro executive. Donald designed a 12-inch lifelike figure of bin Laden whose face was painted with material that, when heated, would peel off to reveal a demon-like visage with red skin, green eyes, and black markings. Now, the goal of the program was to scare children and their parents to turn public opinion against the real Osama bin Laden. Now, this is just very strange, and I'm not too sure it would have worked. But in 2014, the CIA acknowledged the existence of the program, but said it had been discontinued after Donald had produced only 3 prototype figurines. One of the 3 known prototypes is believed to be in the ownership of the CIA, but according to the Washington Post, an anonymous source in China with direct knowledge of the project said that hundreds of toys were created and shipped to Pakistan in 2006. Number 6. Operation Midnight Climax. Operation Midnight Climax was an operation carried out by the CIA as a sub-project of Project MK Ultra, the mind control research program that began in the 1950s. 1950s. It was initially established in 1954 by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb and placed under the direction of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics in Boston, Massachusetts. Under the Cold War and fears of the Soviet Union and China, Dr. Sidney felt inspired to investigate methods of mind control. Operation Midnight Climax gave him permission to test drugs on unknown citizens. So essentially, the government hired sex workers to dose their clients with LSD for mind control research purposes. Official results of these experiments were not released, but accounts from supervisors of the experiments give little insight to the findings. No one knows where the subjects are now or what effect they may have had suffered. Operation Midnight Climax was considered to be so secretive that few people, even in the highest government positions, knew Dr. Sidney existed, let alone was conducting these experiments. However, some senior officers in the CIA knew enough about him to connect his work to LSD. Number 5. Bat explosive. On January 12, 1942, a Pennsylvania dentist named Lytle S. Adams contacted the White House with a plan to turn the tides of World War II. According to Adams, strapping small bombs to bats would give America the edge it needed against the Axis threat. Adams' plan stated, think of thousands of fires breaking out simultaneously over a circle of 40 miles in diameter for every bomb dropped. Japan could have been devastated, yet with small loss of life. Now, like all great plans, the bomb bat was met with no small degree of hiccups. During testing, a few of the bomb-laden bats were accidentally released, causing a hangar and a general's car to be destroyed. After the accident, the program was taken over by the U.S. Marine Corps in December 1943. 30 demonstrations and $2 million later, the project was canned. Now, Adams, not one to give up easily, turned his attention to creating fried chicken vending machines, and well, those took off about as well as the bats. Number 4. Project 100,000. Project 100,000 was a controversial 1960s program by the United States Department of Defense to recruit soldiers who had previously been below military mental or medical standards. This included a lot of Americans with an IQ below 70. Now, majority of these men didn't have above a 9th grade education. Project 100,000 was initiated by Defense Secretary Robert McNamara in October 1966 to meet the escalating manpower requirements of the American government's involvement in the Vietnam War. These soldiers were most likely given jobs on the front lines of the war, and it was worded as a service project, and they were told it would help them gain skills needed to live a better life after the service. In reality, they were cannon fodder for the DoD and died at much higher rates than their non-disabled counterparts. These men largely couldn't read, write, or understand why they were in Vietnam or what they were there to do. They suffered more cases of post-traumatic stress, lower unemployment rates, and higher rates of divorce and ending their lives. Now, this is just extremely sad and makes me so angry. I really can't believe that they got away with this. Number 3. Space threats. A document leaked from a Discord chat room by Jack Texiana, a member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard, spoke about space threats. The leak comes as the U.S. Space Force enters its 3rd year of operation and as senior Pentagon leaders sound the alarm over increased threats coming from space. Space Force General Chance Saltzman, the chief in space operations, said the Pentagon is seeing an incredibly sophisticated array of threats that includes jamming of communications and GPS satellites, spacecrafts that can grapple other satellites, lasers that can dazzle them, cyber attacks, and even nesting dolls, or satellites that release others that spread out and track adversary spacecrafts. The leaked document shows Russia has also experimented with its Tobel electric warfare system in an attempt to disrupt SpaceX's Starlink satellite system. In its annual space threat assessment report, the Center for Strategic and International Studies found that China continues to make progress towards its goal of becoming the world leader in space. Over the past year, China has continued to grow its space and counter-space assets, maintaining its status as the 2nd most capable space nation after the United States. China has also developed a space station in low Earth orbit, landed a spacecraft on the far side of the moon, and a rover on Mars. It also plans to put astronauts on the moon and is targeting a lunar south pole, where NASA's Artemis project also intends to send astronauts. China by far has the more dynamic space program of the 2 U.S. rivals, U.S. officials say. One of the leaked documents says China's overall military strategy to establish and maintain information dominance in conflict drives Beijing's development of space and counter-space doctrine, capabilities, and TTP or tactics, techniques, and procedures. Number 2. The gay bomb. Okay, now let's make one thing clear. The gay bomb was not a weapon that targeted gay people. No, this was designed to turn the enemy gay using laboratory-developed chemical compounds. Why this would help anyone win a war? I don't know. In 1994, an Air Force operated lab in Ohio called the Wright Laboratory was researching non-lethal weapons for military use. The project was not titled the gay bomb, but that's what it was, so that's what I'm calling it. They opted instead for harassing, annoying, and bad guy identifying chemicals. The goal was to discover chemicals that would hamper an enemy's ability to fight. Wright Laboratory went so far as to send a proposal to the Pentagon requesting a $7.5 million research grant. The money was designed to research a motley crew of chemicals meant to attract stinging insects, make enemy soldiers fart and have bad breath, or become homosexual due to a designer aphrodisiac. The proposal from Wright Laboratory stated, one distasteful but non-lethal example would be a strong aphrodisiac, especially if the chemical also caused homosexual behavior. Now, information about the project was released to the press, and the project was denied funding, and the gay bomb project died. And coming in at number 1 is Kitty Spies. Operation Acoustic Kitty just doesn't sound real, especially for the government, but it is. It was a part of the CIA effort to use non-human agents for espionage purposes during the 1960s. Now, assuming cats would be cooperative may have been the first misstep. I mean, have any of these scientists ever dealt with cats before? It's no wonder Acoustic Kitty was an off-the-books project. Now, according to Victor Marchetti, a former assistant to the CIA's director, the process was inhumane to the chosen felines too. He said they slit the cat open, put batteries in him, wired him up, and they made a monstrosity. When it was all said and done, the first Acoustic Kitty cost around $20 million. On its first mission, the cat was struck and killed by a car before even reaching the target. By 1967, the project was added to the CIA's heap of failed projects. The program's potential was summed up by NSA employee Jeffrey Richardson. I'm not sure for how long after the operation the cat would have survived, even if it hadn't been run over. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 weird US intelligent leaks throughout history that make no sense. Which one on our list shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're down there. I'm your host Emily, and we'll see you next time. Peace.